The hum of conversation fills the chamber, the kind of restless noise that carries both tension and entitlement. Papers shuffle. A microphone pops. Somewhere in the back, laughter quiet, but sharp enough to slice through the air. Then, a man's voice. Cold, clipped, dripping with performative patience. With all due respect, he begins the preamble every woman in power knows too well. His words carry no respect at all, only the condescension of someone who's mistaken volume for authority. Cameras zoom. Viewers at home feel the temperature drop. Jasmine Crockett sits still, her pen motionless above her notes. The congressman continues, layering mock civility over disdain, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. Across the room, Vice President Kamala Harris watches unblinking. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't flinch. Her expression holds that quiet command that doesn't ask for space. It redefines it. And then, in one silent, unspoken rhythm, Crockett looks up. Harris meets her gaze. Two women, two stories. One shared language of restraint. The chatter softens. Even the air seems to pause, uncertain whether to move. When the insults stopped working, the narrator's voice breaks through the moment, low and cinematic. Their silence spoke louder than any speech. The congressman clears his throat, shifting uncomfortably. That wasn't supposed to happen. The silence wasn't supposed to feel this powerful. But it does electric, deliberate, charged with centuries of women who've been told to wait their turn. In that pause, they don't need to say a word. The audience sees it. The quiet defiance, the unyielding grace, the kind that doesn't demand the floor. It earns it. The room didn't expect what came next, the narrator continues. A masterclass in grace, born not of privilege but of patience, stretched too thin. Someone coughs. A pen drops. The congressman glances toward the cameras, suddenly aware of just how small the room feels. Because in that instant, with nothing more than a shared look, Jasmine Crockett and Kamala Harris turn the atmosphere inside out. The power dynamic has shifted. The insult has backfired. The audience can feel it, even if they don't yet understand why. But this wasn't the first time they had to stand tall, and the history behind that look would stun everyone watching. Rewind the scene. Before the silence, before the stare that stopped a nation, it was supposed to be just another congressional hearing, neatly scheduled, procedural, unremarkable. Staffers shuffled papers, reporters adjusted cameras, and the congressman at the center of it all wore the kind of smile that wasn't warmth, but warning. His voice, calm yet condescending, filled the chamber. Every syllable stretched with practiced authority. Every question laced with the assumption that the women before him were guests in his domain. His smirk never broke. He didn't need to shout. Arrogance has its own volume. Jasmine Crockett took her seat, posture steady. Kamala Harris stood just behind her, not as an overseer, but as an anchor presence, unspoken, yet unmistakable. Around them, a ripple of unease moved through the rows. Aid whispers, eyes rolling. The kind of quiet that grows when a storm is forming, but no one dares to name it. The congressman leaned in, testing boundaries. His tone softened, but only to sharpen the insult. A phrase about decorum. A chuckle that wasn't quite humor. A glance to his colleagues that said, "Watch this." And then the narrator's voice cuts through, low and deliberate. Every woman in that room knew this wasn't just politics. It was a mirror of how power reacts to grace. Crockett's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger, but in recognition. Harris's nod was imperceptible, but full of history. The silent understanding of every moment they'd had. To hold composure in rooms built to rattle them. The energy shifted. Dismissal was giving way to discomfort. Control was slipping. Because as the tension built, Nobody predicted that the next exchange would change how millions saw both women forever. He wasn't new to the spotlight. In fact, he thrived in it. The congressman had built a career on the theater of confrontation. The raised eyebrow, the scoffing laugh, the practiced pause before a punchline, it was all part of his brand. Clips of his exchanges littered social media. Moments of mock bravado, cut into sound bites that his supporters mistook for strength. He'd interrupted dozens before. Young staffers, seasoned activists, even fellow lawmakers. The pattern was always the same. Condescend, corner, then claim victory before the other side could speak. He didn't debate. He performed. The flashbacks play like reels of arrogance. One moment, a smirk, as a woman finishes her testimony. His laughter, filling the silence meant for respect. Another, a dismissive wave, as though disagreement itself were beneath him. The go. Camera always caught it, that faint satisfaction of someone convinced the system was built to protect his comfort. But today, his target wasn't just any congresswoman. Today, it was Jasmine Crockett, sharp, unshaken, with that courtroom rhythm that makes every word land like evidence. And beside her, Kamala Harris, the first woman, vice president, whose very presence challenged every old rule he still believed in. For the first time, his confidence looked like armor polished, loud, but hollow. Beneath it, a flicker of unease. Two women stood before him, both fluent in survival, both immune to intimidation. The old tactics, the smirks, the interruptions, would not work here. He thought this was another performance. It wasn't. It was a reckoning. And what he didn't know was that the quiet between their glances wasn't hesitation. It was preparation. Before this moment, before the chamber fell silent and the air turned electric, there were two journeys, running parallel long before they ever met. Jasmine Crockett's began in Texas. Courtrooms were her battlegrounds, and truth was her weapon. She wasn't born into power, she carved her way toward it, through late nights, small-town resistance, and the endless echo of people underestimating her. She spoke fast, but every word was deliberate, a habit earned from years of having to repeat herself until people finally listened. Her grit wasn't taught, it was tested. Cut to Kamala Harris, a young prosecutor in California, walking into courtrooms where she was often the only woman of color in the room. "Kamala's too ambitious," they'd whisper, "too confident." Yet she rose, each step a defiance from the courtroom to the Senate to the West Wing. Every smile, every measured pause, hid the same truth. She knew exactly how fragile progress could be. Their stories unfold like a cinematic montage, flashes of campaign stages, community marches, moments of laughter that rarely made headlines. Two women who fought to be heard and learned to let composure become their sharpest reply. Grace, the narrator says, wasn't born overnight. It was forged through years of being doubted. Different states, different paths, but the same rhythm of resistance, the same calm before every storm. And then, destiny's alignment. Two lives once miles apart, now standing shoulder to shoulder under the same fluorescent lights of a congressional hearing. They didn't plan to stand together, the voice continues. But destiny did. Because when arrogance rose again in that chamber, louder, sharper, certain of its power, they didn't flinch. They didn't just respond. They rewrote the script. The tension breaks like glass. The congressman leans forward, his tone dripping with mock courtesy. "With all due respect, Congresswoman," but before he can finish, Jasmine Crockett's eyes lock onto his. No raised voice, no anger, just precision. "Respect," she replies, usually, starts with listening. A ripple moves through the room, half gasp, half applause, disguised as coughs. The camera pans. Kamala Harris doesn't move at first. Then, almost imperceptibly, she steps forward. It's not grandstanding, it's solidarity in motion. Her presence alone changes the air like history itself. Just took a breath. The congressman tries to interject again, but the rhythm is shifted. His voice sounds smaller now, his authority uncertain. Crockett continues facts, reason, fire wrapped in grace. Harris's expression doesn't waver, but her eyes say it all. We've been here before. Not today. Narration cinematic. Every woman in that room felt it. The quiet power of being unshaken. The gavel echoes once, then twice. The room stills. It isn't just a debate anymore. It's a mirror held up to power, reflecting everything that once went unchallenged. Then, in one sentence delivered calm and clear, Crockett says the line that will flood social media within hours. The moment millions would replay frame by frame. A pause, a heartbeat, and then silence. History had just been rewritten. The chamber held its breath. The congressman's smirk faltered for the first time, but he leaned forward anyway, certain he could reclaim control. Jasmine Crockett adjusted her papers, lifted her chin, and spoke deliberate, measured, unwavering. "Mr. Chairman," she began, her voice calm yet unshakably firm, "we're not here to trade insults. We're here to uphold integrity." Her words struck the room like a silent gong. No theatrics, no raised voice, just truth, delivered with precision. Cameras cut to the audience, some frozen mid-note, others leaning forward as if gravity itself had shifted. The subtle power of composure became impossible to ignore. Harris stood just behind Crockett, nodding almost imperceptibly. That nod wasn't performance, it was affirmation. It said, "We are aligned. The world is watching." The point lands. The energy in the room shifted. Arrogance began to crack, replaced by a silent, uneasy recognition of authority rooted not in volume, but in dignity. Crockett continued, each sentence a deliberate beat, rising and falling like a symphony of restraint and emphasis. "For too long," she said, "silence has been mistaken for weakness. But silence, when paired with conviction, is not empty. It is a declaration. It is a statement that truth, and those who carry it, cannot be diminished." Eyes darted across the room. Gasps punctuated murmurs. Staffers whispered. Reporters scribbled furiously. The congressman's jaw tightened, the performance of confidence slipping like sand through his fingers. Midway through, Crockett's cadence sharpened, each phrase ringing with moral clarity. "We stand here not as exceptions. We stand here as proof that grace under fire is not submission. It is power, refined, deliberate, and unstoppable." The room's rhythm followed hers. Pause, reaction, crescendo, silence. Harris's calm presence amplified the moment, a visual motif of solidarity. Together they became statues of resilience, their composure more commanding than any raised voice. Then came the final line, precise, undeniable. "When dignity is our weapon, arrogance has nowhere to hide." A beat passed. The chamber exhaled collectively. And then, slowly, Crockett lowered her notes. Harris mirrored her, and they sat. By the time they did, phones were already buzzing, notifications erupting, cameras capturing every second. The quiet power of truth, paired with unshakable grace, had transformed a routine hearing into a moment the world would replay again and again. By the time they sat down, phones were already buzzing, and what unfolded online turned this chamber moment into a cultural phenomenon. The clip went viral almost instantly. Within minutes, hashtags ignited across social media. Number Grace Under Fire. Number Crockett-Harris moment. Number dignity in action. Every platform buzzed with the same wordless awe, a room of power redefined by composure. News anchors replayed the footage on loop, analyzing the moment with a mix of admiration and disbelief. Commentators dissected every glance, every pause, every inflection in Crockett's voice. Late-night hosts paused their monologues to highlight the precision, the restraint, the silent lesson delivered in a single shared look between two women who refused to bend under arrogance. Even opponents, the ones who had prepared rebuttals, found themselves caught in the sway of undeniable truth. Tweets streamed in, "That's how you lead." Black women carrying the weight of democracy again. When dignity speaks, even the loudest voices falter. Audiences weren't just watching. They were participating, responding, sharing the moment as proof that grace and power could coexist. College students reposted clips in study groups. Activists embedded the footage in newsletters. Elder statespersons sent private messages, acknowledging the rare clarity of leadership displayed. The ripple effect transcended politics. Everyday viewers felt a pulse of affirmation for women, for immigrants, for anyone who had ever been told to wait their turn, to soften their voice, to shrink their presence. The chamber became more than a stage. It became a symbol of what is possible when courage meets composure. Media cycles buzzed with admiration, but it wasn't performative. It was recognition. The rare spectacle of restraint, wielded as strength. Opinion pieces argued the significance, cultural commentators cited it in panels, and the video became shorthand for what leadership could and should look like. Yet beyond the shares, retweets, and viral headlines, something subtler had shifted. The conversation had moved from politics to principle, from spectacle to moral witness. Because while millions saw the clip, felt the power, and cheered from their screens, there was a deeper current, one that couldn't be quantified, tagged, or replayed. But beyond the headlines, something deeper had shifted, something that couldn't be captured by any viral clip. Step back. The gavel's echo has faded, the microphones quieted, and the chamber lights have dimmed, yet the resonance lingers. This moment wasn't just a hearing or a viral clip. It was a mirror held up to the soul of modern politics. When arrogance shouts, dignity listens, and then rewrites history. That was the lesson etched into the air as Jasmine Crockett and Kamala Harris stood side by side, two women whose presence alone challenged centuries of assumption, bias, and entitlement. Together, they embodied a truth far larger than any argument, any policy, or any platform. Leadership is measured not by volume, but by courage under scrutiny. The symbolism is undeniable. One glance, one synchronized gesture, one shared silence. It spoke of solidarity that transcends ideology. It reminded